All right, guys. So we have been adding and subtracting the past couple of days. Today, we are going to get into multiplying. I had the question during my first period class, will we get into dividing? And the answer is no. That is something that you do in Algebra 2. But multiplying. And we're specifically going to be multiplying binomials. Now, we've talked about these words several times. Bi in binomial is a prefix is a prefix for the number 2. And your word nomial, term. So we're going to be multiplying 2 terms, 2 groups, because obviously S makes this plural. So 2 terms. We're going to be multiplying groups of 2 terms each. Notice here in the example, we have 2x plus 5, x plus 4, 2 binomial times binomial. Now, before we get into that, let's go back over, let's do a quick review over what we have been doing these past couple of days. So because we were adding and subtracting, the first step was always to distribute. We're going to do these first 2 examples by distributing. What does it mean to distribute? It means to multiply. Let me zoom in. It means to multiply. Now, we had binomials, trinomials, polynomials. So say, for example, we had the trinomial 3x squared plus 2x plus 1. And it was added to something else. Doesn't matter what else it was. We would put a 1 and we would distribute it. We would multiply that 1 by each number inside, by each term on the inside. Now, if you look here, notice how we no longer have just the number 1. We actually have a term, and this is one term, making it a monomial multiplied by a trinomial. So this is the first step into getting into multiplying a binomial. But let's go once again back over the parts of a term. Let's include one of those little numbers there. Everything put together is called your term. The number in the front is your coefficient. And this number right here is your exponent, your letter, your variable. Now, because we are multiplying or distributing a term, not just the number 1, a term with another term, we also have to go back over those rules. And the rules for that, you have 3 different rules. I'm actually going to use a star instead of numbers. It's not steps. So I want to use, okay, one of the rules is that you are going to multiply the coefficient. We will multiply the coefficient. We're going to multiply the big number. The variable will stay the same. But we add, when we multiply, think back to laws of exponents. If we're multiplying, you don't have to write this part down, but if we're multiplying x squared times x squared, what do you do with these? We're multiplying the powers, so you add the exponent. So add the exponent. And it kind of goes against what we have been working on the past couple of days. But that is because we're going from adding to now multiplying. Okay. So think here. If I did not have a coefficient, I would assign a coefficient of 1. If I don't have an exponent, assign an exponent of 1. So I'm going to distribute it. I'm going to multiply it. And think here. Okay, I'm going to just do a lot of highlighting. That way you know what I'm talking about. You multiply the coefficient. The coefficient of this term is 1. The coefficient of this term is 3. So 1 times 3 gives us 3. Your variables are going to stay the same. So x is still going to remain an x. And you add the exponent. The exponent of this term is 1. The exponent of this term is 2. 1 plus 2 gives us 3. Let's do the next one. The coefficient of that term is 1. The coefficient is 5. We multiply the coefficient. 1 times 5 is 5. Okay. Variable stays the same. So x remains an x. And you add the exponent. Exponent here is 1. I don't have an exponent here, so I also fill that in with the 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. Add the exponent. Okay, let's try here. Here we have a coefficient, but there's no letter, there's no exponent. I mean, there's no variable, there's no exponents for us to worry about. But same thing, 1 times not just 6, -6 is -6. X times nothing is still going to be an X. Think about it. Now that we have this -6x, I always get 1 or 2 students that are confused, but why do we put the X if there's no X there? Think about this. When we used that example yesterday, we multiplied 3 times X. 3 times X is 3X. 4 times Y is 4Y. So X times -6, -6X. There you go. It's also, if you want to apply these rules, let's look here. We have 1x to the power of 1 times -6. It would be the same as having x to the power of 0 because there's no x's on that 6. 1 times -6, -6. 1 plus 0, x stays the same. 1 plus 0 is still 1. -6x to the power of 1. Okay. All right, so let's try the next example. Ooh, I didn't even know I could do that. All right, let's try the next example. We know we have to distribute that outside term with every term inside, and this time there's 4. There we go. Now we have a coefficient, we have the variable, and we need a power. There we go. So here we're going to be multiplying the coefficient. 4 times 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Y stays the same. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 times -5, -20. Y stays the same. 1 plus 2 is 3. 4 times magic number 1 is 4. +4, so +4. Y stays the same. We have a 1 exponent. There should be a magic exponent of 1 there. So 1 plus 1 gives us 2. Next, 4 times 2 is 8. There's a y here. There's no y here. So since there is no y, if you can't remember that 4y times 2 is just 8y, you could also insert y to the power of 0. It's like having no y's. So y stays the same. 1 plus 0 is still 1. And there's your final answer. 4y to the 4th minus 20y cubed plus 4y squared plus 8y. Okay? So that is how you distribute a monomial. We're distributing the monomial. We're multiplying this monomial with everything in the parentheses. But what do we do when we're multiplying two binomials? When we don't have just one number on the outside. Now, one thing that we, just so you know your way around, because we have all this verbiage right here, multiply the first, second. What is the first? What is the second? when we're talking about the first and the second, we're talking about the first and the second binomial. The first group of parentheses, that is what I'm referring to as my first binomial. The second group of parentheses, that is what I refer to as my second binomial. Now, in between these parentheses is something missing that we usually have or that we've had the whole week, and that is a plus or a minus sign. There is no plus, there is no minus. So that is automatically indicating that we're going to multiply these binomials. So rule, when, I need to move these, this, whatchamacallit, nope, okay. When there's no plus or minus, not equals, plus, when there's no plus or minus sign in between, it is understood to be, let me underline it, multiplication. When there's no plus or minus sign in between the parentheses, that is because it is understood to be multiplication. This is a highlight color, cool. I'm gonna highlight this. Okay, that is because it is understood to be multiplication. Okay, that's one of the things that you're gonna need to know while we're working these out. Another thing is, remember, if I'm going too fast, you need to pause the video or restart that part. Another thing we need to understand is the difference between adding these terms and subtract and multiplying the terms. So when we're adding the terms x plus x, we wrote this rule down. What are we actually adding? We're adding the coefficient. And if it does not have a coefficient, you assign a 1. So 1 plus 1 gives us 2x. If we're multiplying these, this is our power rule, our exponent rule. What are we adding? We're not adding the coefficient, we're adding the exponent, and 1 plus 1 gives us x squared. Now, I know you guys are visual learners, so just so you could picture in your head, think about this. We have 1 burger plus 1 burger makes 2 burgers. If we're multiplying, we're increasing in size of the same thing. We're increasing in size of the x, so it's like taking 1 burger and increasing the size, so now we have double the size of that burger. It's increasing 1 burger with 1 patty, another patty. Now it has 2 patties. It's a big burger. It's a jumbo burger. Multiplying means to increase in size. Adding means to increase in quantity. Okay. All right. So let's look at this. First, outer, inner, last. FOIL. It's an acronym. Each letter stands for something. So let's multiply. First, the first term in the first binomial, first term in the first binomial, and the first term in the second binomial. So what we're doing is we are taking this 2x and multiplying it by x. 2x times x. And that's going to give us 2x squared. If you need to see it with exponents and coefficients, 2 times 1, 2. X times x, you add the exponent, 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, let's try the next one. Outer, and when we're talking about outer, we're talking about the outside of all 4 of these terms, 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So on the outside, we have 2x. On the outside, we have the 4, outside, outer. The first term of the first binomial and the last term of the second one. So we're going to take that 2x and multiply it by 4. 2x times 4 is just 8x. Inner, the terms on the inside. 5 is on the inside, x is on the inside. The last term of the first, last term of the first, first term of the last of the second binomial. And we get 5 times x, which is 5x. Last, we're multiplying the last term of the first binomial, and we're also multiplying the last term of the second one. So last. I'm going to take 5 and I'm going to multiply it by 4. All right, last times last, oops. So 5 times 4 gives us 20. Now let me zoom out. How do I zoom out? It won't let me. There we go. So once I zoom out, look at it as a whole. We got 2x squared from this, 8x, 5x, and 20. So what do you think is the next step? The next step will be to combine the ones that look alike, combine the like terms. And if you do this correctly in the order that you're supposed to, you will always end up combining the middle two terms. Let me draw this kind of arrow. So 8x plus 5x, and that'll give us 13x. In the end, you can put your answer together. 2x squared from the first one, 13x positive, so plus 13, and then 20, a positive 20, so plus 20. Make sure you're using your plus and your minus signs to separate your terms. If it's a negative, that's always easy. Because negatives take the place of a minus sign, but some of you guys are forgetting your plus signs. So big picture, the first step is to multiply. Second step is to combine. And I always like to emphasize again that combining means to add or subtract, okay? Now I'm going to show you a couple of different ways. The first way that we're going to do this is by actually writing FOIL down the side. FOIL. Okay, so the first of this group is 3x. First of that one, 6x. 3x times 6x, 3 times 6 is 18, x times x, x squared. Once again, if you need to see it with the exponents, 1 plus 1, 2. All right, outside, 3x times negative 5. 3 times negative 5, negative 15, and add the x there. Once again, if you need to see the variable with the exponent, x stays the same. 1 plus 0 is still 1. Inside, 2 times 6x, 2 times 6x, 12x. And last, 2 times negative 5, 2 times negative 5. 2 times negative 5 gives us negative 10. Now, if you do it once again correctly, you will end up adding or subtracting the middle two terms. Negative 15 plus 12 will give us negative 3x. So our answer, 18x squared minus 3x minus 10. All right, let's do this again. FOIL, F-O-I-L. All right, first with first, 8x times 6x. 8 times 6, 48. X times x, x squared. Outside, 8x times negative 7. 8 times negative 7, negative 56. X with no x is just an x. Negative 1 times 6x. Negative 1 times 6x, negative 6x. Last, negative 1 times negative 7. 2 negatives make a positive. 1 times 7 is 7. You combine the middle two. Now, this way, doing FOIL this way does require a little bit more writing. So there is a shorter way if you would like to do it on your assignment. So 48x squared minus 62x plus 7. And tomorrow we'll learn a whole different way that also gives you the same answer. So we know we're multiplying the first with the first term with first term. 9x times 5x is 45x squared. For those of my friends that can do it in their head. First times last. 9x times negative 3. negative 27x. Now, last times first, 4 times 5x, positive 20x. Last times last, 4 times negative 3, negative 12. You always combine the middle two. So when we combine negative 27 and 20x, that gives you negative 7x. Final answer, 45x squared minus 7x minus 12. Last example, we're actually going to use FOIL, writing FOIL down the side. And most people will guess the reason we're doing that is because we do have two variables compared to just one variable like in the other examples. So first, x times x. X times x gives us x squared. Outside, we have x on the outside, negative 9y on the outside. Now, let me go ahead and fill in my coefficient. 1 times negative 9 is negative 9. But when you multiply x times y, when you multiply two different letters, you just put them together. Okay. Next, inside, we do negative 3y times x. Let me fill in my coefficient. Negative 3 times 1 is still negative 3. Y times x is yx, but put it in alphabetical order and it becomes xy. Last, we have negative 3y times negative 9y. Multiply. Negative 3 times negative 9, positive 27. Y times y, y squared. As always, you can combine the middle two. Negative 9 plus negative 3, or negative 9 minus 3 gives us negative 12xy. Put it all together, minus 12xy plus 27y squared. Okay, so those of you working from home, just make sure you write those on a piece of notebook paper, unless you can print it, and get that turned in, send me a picture. Everybody else, have a great day.